Hey everybody, this is Mark Vogel here for my Module 7 reflection on my blended learning lessons from last week. It's kind of ironic because my I had my post observation. I just got observed 2 weeks ago, and one of the things I want to improve on is just reflecting in general as an educator. That's one of the things I put down to improve on. So kind of reflecting on this is already a good start. But just a refresher for what I did, I used the station rotation model, and up in the front of the classroom was my teacher-led instruction. In the middle of the classroom, I had students do quizzes on the iPad, and then in the back, they had two groups, and they were working on Keystone practice books. So the group I had up front was on whiteboards, and then I did a couple problems with them together, and then I had them go to the front whiteboard and the side chalkboard to do some practice problems too. And that went really well. I was able to do a lot of one-on-one with students there. If there are any students that were absent that just needed a little extra practice. The group in the middle, the quizzes they were doing every single problem on paper and pencil, and the quizzes was on their iPads. So I also allowed them to listen to music, which that'll come up when I asked for feedback. But so that station went really well. And then in the back, like I said, there were two groups. They were doing the multiple choice practice problems for the Keystone test coming up in May, and I had them do that on paper as well. So the one website that really I think I benefited from was the one that included this model here. And I only have an 80-minute block, but I did about 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning as an instruction as a group, and then we broke up and I did 15-minute stations. So I also thought putting this timer up on the board, like I think Liz mentioned that to us, but I had the 15-minute timer up on the front board, so the students, whether they were in my group, the quizzes in the middle, or the Keystone group in the back, they could look up there and say, "Oh, we have 5 minutes left," or here's how much time, try to get their work done. The transitions from each group went really well. I think it was a little unique for them setting up the classroom at the beginning, but once we got moving, I think they really enjoyed the 15-minute stations. And then we did a little wrap at the end. I gave them a few minutes to start homework, and then I asked for feedback the next day. When it came to the feedback, most of them were a little hesitant because I asked them in person. One thing I would change is I would ask them for feedback, whether they'd write it down or they'd shoot me a message on Schoology. I think they'd be a little more honest. One girl, for example, I taught this in two lessons, my period 1 and my period 5 class. One girl said she likes the way I normally teach, and it kind of got her out of her comfort zone, which I appreciated her honest feedback. But I told her that sometimes it's good to try new things and get out of your comfort zone. So we had a little talk about that. Some of the students said that they liked doing the being able to listen to music here. They could have worked at their own pace. I'm going to just show you real quick how the quiz worked. So here's what it looks like from a teacher standpoint. And when I click host game, this comes up. So the students will type in the code, and they will, let me open up a new window here. So if I would go to quizzes, but I'm going to log out. So for the student view over here on the right, all they do is enter that code right there, 335881, and then they just enter their name. So now you can see on the teacher view that I have one student here ready to play. So I'm going to start it, and I'll turn the music off. That's kind of annoying. But so they would write this problem right here out on their scrap paper and then solve it. And then let's see, the answer would be 15x plus 10, and it tells them they're correct. And on my screen, I can see that as a class, they have 100% because I only answered one problem out of the I believe there's 15 questions total. Next question, they'd write that down. Negative 4x squared minus 6x. Click the orange one. So then as a class, you can see, and now we're up to 2 correct. And it adds these up, and the students can see what place they're in. So I'll get one wrong here. X squared plus 5x plus 6 would be right. So if they get it wrong, it shows them the correct answer. And then as a class, I can see, well, they're 2 correct, 1 incorrect. Some more data on the quizzes. It tells me which was the toughest question, which one did they spend the most amount of time on. So it's a good formative assessment. So right here I can see Sierra, Abby, they both got 100%. They got every question correct. And then it also, you can export the results into an Excel sheet here. I'll just show you real quick. So this is something I can use as a grade. I just grade their scrap paper for this day, but you can look at each individual student and each individual problem. So here are their names at the top. Here are the problems on the side, and I can see this question right here was missed 3 times. Some students didn't get all these questions done, but again, I can get some good results to see how they did on that. When I created the groups before the class, I tried to break them into, there were about groups of 7 or 8, and I took students who are strong, students who are weaker, and put them in the same groups. I think that went pretty well. If I was looking to do a little more challenge problems for the students who are more advanced and some more reteaching for students who are weaker, maybe I'd group the students differently based on ability. But I thought it worked pretty well, especially in the back. They were able to help each other out here. And I also tried to mix up like the number of boys and girls in each group to kind of make that even. One thing I might adjust doing a lesson like this in the future is maybe having the classroom set up before the kids come in already with the 3 groups. That would save a little bit of time before getting started. When it comes to things that I wouldn't have been prepared for, again, like I said, having the classroom set up, that would have saved a little bit of time. I know the one class, I forgot to have the timer up. I used to use the Google timer where I put 15 minutes up in the top corner of my screen. So that took me a minute or 2 to get back up. And I think I didn't have the quizzes ready for a live game right away, so I had to kind of, so the group I was with up here, they had to wait a minute for me to get that set up for the middle station. And going back to the feedback that I got from the students the following day, along with being able to listen to their music, they also really liked how it made the stations made the class go a lot quicker. When they were doing a 15-minute station, then they moved on to something new, 15 minutes on to something new. So, they kept them moving. They weren't doing the same task for 30, 40 minutes, so that kept it kind of fresh. And I didn't do a completely flipped classroom lesson, but on Schoology, we had a 2-hour delay. This would have been on Friday, March 1st. So I was actually doing grad work for this class, and I thought, why not try a flipped classroom? Might save some put a video up to save some time for class, just to see how many. And I know all the students didn't know about it ahead of time, but I posted it at 8 a.m. And for my first period class, I had first and fifth period class, I did the same thing. I posted that after watching the video, I put one problem up here for them to simplify, x squared minus 64. We were doing factoring, and I just had them comment. It's something they could easily type in. The answer is x plus 8, x minus 8, or vice versa, x minus 8, x plus 8. So I just had them typed in the answer as a comment. And out of about 20 kids in each class, I had 7 in each class respond, which I thought was pretty good for not telling them this ahead of time. Plus, we were on a 2-hour delay schedule, so the schedule was a little wacky. And I only posted that about less than 2 hours before we were in school. So they really had about an hour or so to do that. And the one thing I found that was ironic, based on the students who submitted their answers, that's period 1, and then here is period 5. And I even had a young lady who explained it too a little bit in some words, which is kind of neat. Only one boy in each group did it, and the rest were all girls. So I thought that was kind of ironic. So we talked about that, about how girls might be a little more responsible. And I told them I know some of them might not have had their notifications turned on. But I was really glad I actually attempted this little bit of a flipped classroom idea. It was less than a 5-minute video, so it wasn't completely a flipped classroom, wasn't the entire lesson. But I think with 9th graders, if I can even just show them a video, if it's just something very simple that they can kind of have an idea in their brains coming into class already before we do some practice, it might really help them. Flipped classroom is something I was kind of not really fully on board with, but just the fact that 7 students really took the time to actually watch this. And I didn't even tell them the day before about it, so that was kind of neat to see. My biggest takeaways from doing this is just, learning by trial and error and trying new things. It might take some of the students out of their comfort zone from what I've noticed the first couple times trying this. And I also kind of got to show hands how many liked doing this, how many didn't. And I think some of them they like to kind of complain a little bit. So some of them said they didn't really enjoy it. But I think if you stick with it and use it on a regular basis, and the students might kind of be more um, excited about this type of an idea. And I definitely felt a little overwhelmed at the beginning with trying something new like this in my classroom. I knew there were definitely advantages to it, and it will definitely benefit the students. And but my one thing I know we've talked about in discussions is having more time to do this. The station rotation lesson I came up with definitely took time to prepare, more time than normal. So I know Liz mentioned that this is something that should be done over like a 12 to 18 month time period. And if I had that much time, I think I could definitely really enhance one or two of my courses doing a blended less format. Um, but over time, I think I could certainly make the learning experience more enjoyable and memorable for the students and for myself. Thank you for watching my students, and my video, and I've really enjoyed getting to learn with all of you throughout this course.